I'd just like to say that the LGBTQ plus community may seem a little bit out there sometimes, and that is kind of our whole thing. But we are very wonderful people who just want to make sure everybody is equal and loved in the same way as everybody else. So don't be afraid of us. I swear we're good people. We can be a little obnoxious sometimes, but hey, I feel like that applies to everybody. So
Hmm.
always love yourself, never be ashamed of who you are, and always love others.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to MaebeeTV Asks Episode 7 about Pride. Now, happy Pride, everyone. I know this is nearing the end of Pride, sadly, but we have a lot in store for you today. We have about 4 interviews, if I can remember correctly, and we will be learning about a bunch of different things. So, I hope you enjoy. Let's start the interviews. So,
No.
first question,
Mhm.
what does it mean to be pansexual and demisexual?
So, demisexual basically means that I am attracted to people that I have a emotional bond with. Like, there's several like stuff that I relate to that person, like such as like trauma or stuff like that. I feel like there's a emotional connection with them, so that's when I only feel attracted to that person or like any person
Mhm.
in that matter. Pansexual is that I'm attracted to all genders. Like, I don't care if you're like trans, I don't care if you're non-binary, like I don't care at all. Like there's no I can't like there's no certain um specified uh gender that I would like to date. Like I don't differentiate basically. Not differentiate, like I don't yeah, I don't like have a preference.
How would you describe yourself in one sentence?
Um if I had to relate me being demisexual into that sentence, then I'd say that's actually kind of hard because it's like there's so many stuff I could say, so fitting them all in like a single sentence could be kind of difficult. But I think what would be most fitting is I like all except those I don't relate to. Maybe.
Mm.
It's the most accurate thing I could say, honestly.
Okay. What are your thoughts on the importance of inclusion and diversity in the workplace?
I think there should be like diversion because not everyone is the same, and for you to or for someone to limit like a certain limit people to a certain type of, for example, say sexuality or gender or like what they look like or whatever, I don't think that would be something that is ideal because first and foremost they're people and you can't really change someone. Like everyone has different views and different opinions and stuff, and so your opinion might be different than someone else's, and so for you to restrict others from their own opinions and force your own into like a certain workplace or workspace, you're like basically limiting the chance of good people or like loyal people who don't fit at certain criteria that you set to work and then like work for you or be able to handle like the workspace because of how they're being discriminated against. And so yeah, like if you're able to fully focus on not discriminating against people, then you'll find so many loyal and hardworking people that don't necessarily fit that criteria that you like specified with, but they will be able to, like, they will be much better than other people that do fit the criteria.
How do you stay positive in the face of adversity?
I honestly think that people that are negative or see things like certain stuff negatively, unless of course there is like a valid reason, like bad people or bad stuff that happen in the world, I feel like that has absolutely no base, no core, because it's all coming from that said person's emotions or that certain person's way of thinking. Because it's all, I think it's like people that are negative, it's not really that much of their fault as it is how they were raised. So when someone is negative towards me, I honestly think it's just something that maybe they were forced to think, or like some stupid idea that has been stuck in their head. So I feel bad for them more than I feel bad for myself, because then I realize that if they're so affected by me, for example, like being pansexual, then even though I haven't like done anything to them, or like I won't even like them for like said example, then they have no reason to object. So I honestly think it's like more of like empty words, and I feel more sorry for them than I feel sorry for me, and that just like balances it out, in my opinion. Honestly, for like me specifically, I feel like it's just a month where I get to celebrate me finding out, or like me being proud of how far I've come. Because when I was younger, for me, like I'd see these parades, or I'd see like RuPaul's Drag Race, and I'd be like, "Oh, that's so cool!" But like I when I was younger, I wished I was like RuPaul, like and like be part of the Pride parades and stuff. And so, but then I get like that ideal pushed away by my parents, because they were horrified of that thought, and so I was like banned from watching them and stuff like that. And so it just, me coming so far and being able to finally like recognize myself and be like, hey, now I'm part of this community, and I can finally celebrate me being part of this community.
In what ways do you feel the LGBT community has made progress recently?
Oh, so many ways. Like I've seen so many people like open up more and start to accept it more. I'm so proud of my friend. One of my friends, fuck English. One of my friends talked to his mother about like wanting to transition, and his mom was totally cool about it, even though like we live in this like closeted ass country. And then I got to see so many people like finally open up to me. Like I was in this party, like this cafe opening party. One of my friends like opened a cafe, and then I found this group of people, and we started talking, and I found out like a lot of people started opening up about like LGBTQ, and that them like being able to say that in front of a group of me, being able to say that I am part of the LGBTQ plus community in front of a lot of people IRL, like just made me emotional. I was like, oh my god, I found my people.
Yeah, the moment when you realize you're not alone.
Yeah, exactly. And so me seeing that all these people are like finally opening up to the idea of having LGBTQ plus like people in the world, and that it's not like that much of a bad thing to like not be mad at is just so, how do I say it, like relieving to me, because I didn't grow up like that. It was very like conservative, and so for me to be able to finally be able to speak about it in front of a group of people just made me so emotional. I cried that day, actually. I came back and I just started crying. I was like, finally.
Aw.
So yeah, it's just, that's how I felt.
Mhm. And my last question: how do you plan on celebrating Pride Month this year?
I got a rainbow sprinkle cake, and my mom doesn't know that it symbolizes Pride Month. I got it, and I was like, I just wanted a cake, and it's just like this tiny, like tallish cake with rainbow sprinkles inside. They didn't know that it was Pride Month, like the shop I went to, and they just make these like every week, and so I just got one. Yeah, I just got one, and I printed this little like paper that said Happy Pride Month, and then I stuck like a toothpick to it, and then I put it on the cake, and I just like started cheering to myself. I was like, yay! But yeah, that's the only way I celebrate it, because there's no parades here. But I would love to someday be able to go to a parade, because that's what I've been wanting since I was a child, as I mentioned before. But yeah.
What is it like being a intersex person?
Well, there's a lot of different conditions for intersex people. It can be anything from full kind of ambiguous genitalia where you have characteristics of both genitalia. It can be having a chromosomal difference. So you can have XXY, you can have multiple X's and Y. You can have oh Lord, there are so many different conditions. My personal condition, I was born with ambiguous genitalia and some testosterone insensitivity. So for me growing up when I was very young, everything was hidden from me, and a lot of things were done to me in, that I didn't understand as a young child.
Yeah.
And so it was very confusing as a young child. I'll tell you that much about my condition. I was born with a very, 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 very tiny little penis. Back then, they literally had a ruler. And if you were born this size, you were a girl. And if you were born this size, you were a boy. I was born very premature. I was very sick. So they couldn't do sexual assignment surgery when I was born. So my parents took me home, and they kind of decided that because I was born with a small penis, even though everything else was kind of shaped differently, they decided that they were going to raise me as a boy because I had a penis, and that didn't work out very well, I think, for anyone in the long run.
Yeah.
So the rest of my experience is very transgender. My parents had me sexually assigned later in life, male, when I was 5, and that never really fit for me. And so I had basically a transgender experience from my generation, which is basically trying to man up and own being a man, even though that doesn't fit, and all of the horrible things that go along with that.
Yeah.
Until you finally realize that, yeah, there's many things wrong with me, and the only way to fix those things is to face them. So for me, that meant HRT, hormone replacement therapy. I actually have a feminine skeleton. I don't have the expansion joints in my hips. Well, I do have the expansion joints in my hips actually. I don't have the reinforcing plate that men do at the back of their hips for their hips join their spine. I'm built for childbirth in my skeletal structure, and because I didn't have produce the acids that wash all of those expansion joints, and so I've had horrible hip problems and horrible pain, and so getting on HRT instantly, I wasn't in pain anymore. And so, yeah, it's growing up with a body that is literally both masculine and feminine, and then trying to figure out how to navigate all that, which, you know, it's a little bit of that trans experience. It's a little bit of, you know, kind of a medical experience. So there's a lot that goes into being intersex. And it's different for every intersex person out there because we're all born a little differently, right? It's like saying someone has autism, but not all autistic people are the same, right?
Yeah,
there's like a spectrum. Yeah. Right, there's a spectrum of autism, right? So intersex is the same way. There's a vast spectrum of different conditions and different bodies, and we're all different.
I think actually everything is a spectrum in some kind of way.
Right, exactly. There's no set in stone, this is male and this is female, right? Because you've known in your lifetime, you've known very butch, very tomboy girls. They are cisgender, they are girls, but they will play on the boys football team or join wrestling, right? But they're girls. But then you have the very, very, very girly girls, which are on the opposite end of that spectrum, right? So everything, even cisgender, is a spectrum of representation. I'm 51. I admit it. I am of that Gen X generation, which we were a lot more forward than our parents. But even then, there was a lot of that same prejudice passed on to our generation. I was raised in a very hardcore Pentecostal church, 5 nights a week, that whole thing.
Yeah.
And so that again made growing up with this body very confusing, because you have all these people telling you that all your thoughts and feelings are wrong, and you're just trying to navigate, trying to be yourself. And when you can't be yourself because you're constantly shamed and told that you're wrong, it's really, really hard to grow up that way and to try to figure out life.
Yeah. How do you think society can be more supportive of people with different genders and sexualities?
That's a difficult question. I think there's two fundamental things that stop our society from just letting people be. And I think that's a lack of empathy and a lack of education. So if I had one true dream, it would be that people were actually taught like empathy, right? Like you should walk a mile in someone's shoes before you judge them. And that is so hard in our society, right? Because everybody wants to hold on to their prejudice, and everybody wants to believe that they're right. And especially with the internet, if the only thing that you are exposed to is your own opinion, which is what the algorithm does, it exposes you to your own opinion.
Yeah.
Then you never learn, you never grow, you never become somebody else. You never walk that mile in someone else's shoes. And so I think empathy and education are really the way to go. And if I know it's a controversial subject with them wanting to teach more gender studies and more like racial studies in schools, but I think it is so necessary.
Yeah.
I know if someone when I was young would have explained these things to me, my life would have been vastly different, because I could have went, oh, that makes sense. That's what I am. And then it wouldn't have been this process of me unearthing it and examining my medical records and going through this process of self-discovery when someone could have just went, this, sweetheart, is what your problem is physically, and this is, these are your options in life. And that would have helped me. I think it would have helped my parents. I think it would have helped, like everybody involved, my teachers. I think if there was just more knowledge out there, we'd all be so much better off. There are a lot of people who just follow along, and they follow along with the people they're around, and they don't have a thought process of their own. And sometimes that's just because they're young, and that's sometimes because they just don't have a real will of their own. Our school system does a very, very poor job of teaching critical thinking and critical analysis. And so I think if, again, more people were exposed to, this is true critical thinking and this is true critical analysis, and this is how to use the brain that you have in your head, we'd all be so much better off.
You are so right. People need to think for themselves and experience so many. It's like when making a decision, like let's say your friend group has a fight, instead of just choosing whoever first talked to you about it, listen to every single side before, making a judgment. Because you're probably going to get it wrong if you just listen to one side. Yeah, it's really a problem with young people. That's where bullying comes from and all that stuff. Yeah. Most adults start to grow out of it. Some never do. But most people learn to keep their mouths shut. There's just always that small, really vocal group who doesn't know how to just live and let live. What does Pride Month mean to you?
It's really amazing to me. Because again, growing up in a small town and being intersexed and my mom was a lesbian. I was a product of a bisexual encounter. And it was always this, no one talks about it. I was raised by my grandparents. My mom wasn't even allowed to come around a lot. Okay. And so for me to see this like massive outpouring of people that either are, allies, or there's, these huge gay communities that weren't allowed to be out in the open before. I love Pride Month because it's wonderful to see everyone out and open. A lot of people live in the closet for so long, and especially of my generation and before, that the idea of being able to walk out on the street and just be yourself is really, really, really empowering. And I do have children. I have a 20-year-old that is questioning and is just, exploring their gender. Has decided to come out gay. And then I've got another child who is non-binary, who is lesbian, kind of on the masculine side of non-binary. And then I have a wonderful 8-year-old who doesn't care. right? And
Yeah.
so for me, Pride Month is really important because we all went to the park yesterday it was Pride Day in our town, and we went to the park yesterday, and then there was a big dance afterwards, and um, it was amazing to see the community out in force, and it means so much that people feel free to go out and live their lives now, and it's a great way to be seen, right?
Yeah.
It's again, it's that part of that education, right? If they can't see you, they can't truly understand you. And so to see these communities, and a park full, a giant park full of people, and be decked in rainbows and trans flags and non-binary flags and gay and lesbian flags, it was it's amazing. And to see that colorful, lively populace that, honest to God, is really a driving factor in our culture forever, right?
Yeah.
Where would you be in the arts community if you didn't have the LGBTQ plus community, right?
Yeah.
All the actors, all the Broadway people. I mean, let's face it, that is a very gay community, right? Where would the world be without those people? But those people couldn't be themselves for so long.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of them went into the arts. Personally, I think because I'm a theater person myself. I did professional theater for a long time. I think a lot of us went into the arts because we were free to be ourselves, and we knew there were going to be people there who understood us. So again, I think it's amazing and wonderful, and it's everything the world needs in one little place.
When it comes to like big cities, there has been talk I've seen of parents wanting to bring their kids to pride parades, but not wanting to because they feel that it's slightly unsafe. Not because, it's LGBT people, because there are people who, there have been reports of even my like close friends going to pride parades, and then there being a report that someone had a gun or that kind of stuff. What do you think about that? What do you think is the solution?
We walk in a dangerous world every day. It doesn't matter where you are or when it is, you live in a dangerous world. If they took every gun off the street, you'd have the problem with knife attacks that you do in Europe. It is a dangerous, dangerous, dangerous world, and you kind of just have to walk through it. And taking my kids down to our Pride Festival yesterday, there were counter protesters there, and they were saying all the ugly things and had all the ugly signs.
Yeah.
And I talk to my kids, even my youngest, my 8-year-old. I talk to her and I say, these people are just, lonely and afraid, and they have their own issues to deal with.
Yeah.
And we don't need to be afraid of them. We just need to know that they're there. And how I see it is there's danger everywhere all the time. And so, like I said, I grew up in a small town. I have been in law enforcement. I still have a pistol purse, or a purse pistol,
Yeah.
and I do carry it for my protection and the protection of my family and the protection of those around me. That's not a real popular opinion sometimes, but I admit I live in a dangerous world. And as far as like in Idaho, I'm not very far from Idaho. I'm here in Washington, and all those guys that got arrested that were in the U-Haul van with like all their guns and armor and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's some scary stuff, right?
Yeah.
But again, through all of my law enforcement training and everything, I know I I don't want to get into a speech on how to protect yourself out in public. Um, just
It's okay.
know where the exits are, know your escape routes, and know the difference between concealment and cover. And if you do have a way to protect yourself, the rule of thumb is save and protect who you can and hold your own. So grab as many people as you can, find a piece of cover, and wait. And if you're threatened, take action to save yourself. Don't just sit there and be a target. If you got nothing but a rock, use the rock. If you got nothing but a sign, use the sign. You might go down swinging, but at least you tried. You may have saved somebody else. And that's a horrible reality. And that's a horrible reality that we live with. And I don't want to make that big of a deal, because I think 99 times out of 100 you're safe.
Yeah.
Most people will not engage in an environment where they know that they're going to be faced with resistance, right? So an entire park full of families with a police presence is a pretty hard target, and you're not going to come in there guns blazing, because you're going to die really quick. So I think 99 times out of 100 it's safe. Now, for me personally, because I'm in Washington and we're not far from Seattle, Pride events in Seattle are a little different than Pride events in my hometown.
Yeah.
And so the Pride events in Seattle, I would be hesitant to take my 8-year-old because of how some people choose to celebrate their pride in the open with a little too much skin and a little too much partying. But that's the only reason for me is to be hesitant to take the 8-year-old is because she doesn't need to see people's freak flag that freaky. So that would be my only hesitance there. I've gone to some events where people have just saw fit to get naked, and so that's not something my child needs to be exposed to. But other than that, like big pride events in the park and family friendly pride events, totally willing to take my 8-year-old.
Yeah, that's something I think people like to use as a argument against pride parades. They like to say, "Oh, why would you take your kids to this when that is a for adults pride thing?" When they're ignoring the family friendly ones.
Right, exactly. And like I said, my hometown one was very family friendly. It was a whole lot of families and their children, and it was very just hometown. It was no different than any of our other big community events, right? It really wasn't. There were food trucks, and there were people hanging out and partying, and there was a live band. It was like any other big community event. It just had a whole lot of rainbows going around.
Yeah. In what ways do you feel that the LGBTQ community has made progress in the recent years?
From when I was growing up, it's night and day. I think, honest to God, one of the biggest key issues that helped the gay community was internet access. So I know that I didn't really even know that there were other people like me. I mean, I knew there were gay people. My mom was gay. I knew her friends, but I didn't know about like other intersex people, and I didn't know anything about trans people or anything until I had internet access in like the late 80s, right? So like 88, 89, and going on to like the University of Washington's chat servers right? So all of a sudden, this like high school kid is being exposed to people in college who are discussing these issues, and I'm like, wait, there are people out there like me. And I really think that internet access and internet communities and being able to build online communities has been the biggest help for getting us out there and into the open and helping us help each other. As far as in recent years, I think it is the Gen Z kids. These Gen Z kids have been raised with their kind of older millennial parents who may have had older Gen X parents, and it's a series of learning. So like in the 80s we had like all the new wave artists and stuff and David Bowie and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So we got comfortable with that, and then the millennials, they were raised by those people and they had their own influences. So by the time it was everywhere on the internet and everybody had access to it, and there's all these Gen Z kids who get to actually pick and choose their information. And I think it is their willingness to embrace the future that is the biggest step forward in society. Not just LGBTQ plus society, all society. I think it is that generation who is going to make big strides in the world as far as acceptance and being able to navigate this digital future that we've created.
I so agree with that. And that is the last question I have. I did want to say that, like, that is exactly what I want to do for MaebeeTV. After a long time, probably like a couple years, I want MaebeeTV to be a international thing. So I want MaebeeTV at one point to be every single video uploaded, every single film made is translated into not every single language, but most languages. Because no fucking way I can do every single language. But most languages, and I want that information put there so that people have the chance to learn, because that is something I love doing. I love learning more and more about humans and how complex they are and how everyone is different, right?
Yes.
And I feel that my like openness to anything is what's like good. And
Right.
it's just I really I don't care like what. Well, I do care, but like it doesn't bother me. Like I make it clear when talking to people, whenever someone else calls like some kind of sexuality weird or something like that, I don't call it weird. I just say, oh, that's just out of the societal norm, but that doesn't make it weird or bad. It's
Right.
just outside the societal norm, and it shouldn't bother you. It's not like getting in your way.
Right. Did you know? Well, I won't even say that, because I was gonna be like, did somebody grab your ass? Well, that may be irritating and it's inappropriate for them to do, but it's not uncommon. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
it's like people do inappropriate things to each other all day long. I'm 51 years old. I go to bars. Trust me, I know. So, you know, is it just because you didn't like that it was a man, or you didn't like the fact that it was a woman? Like, you know.
Have you experienced discrimination in the workplace and elsewhere?
Not in the workplace, thankfully. I'm very like I haven't come out in my workplace yet. Although I'm like a ninja. I'm like a ninja in the closet. I wear feminine clothing, but I don't bring it up. And no one seems to care. No one seems to care. So but
That's
elsewhere
good.
elsewhere maybe a tiny bit, but it's like been once and that's it. And it probably wasn't even that. It was probably just blissful ignorance.
Okay. For me, like, I don't go outside.
No,
So,
I
like,
try to prevent myself going outside at all costs. It helps being an introvert.
yeah. How would you describe yourself in one sentence?
Um hmm. Flamboyantly tomboyish and but still like not flamboyantly tomboyish but not overly flamboyant, like not like the stereotypical like, oh my god, let's go to the mall, not that kind. Not that kind. I'm more so I like being classified as tomboy because it allows me to like societally accept, like society would accept the fact that I enjoy doing like male things and also girly things, more so the girly end, but still I'm okay with getting down and dirty. And my favorite kind of like icon when it comes to femininity is like, I forget this muscle girl's name from Encanto, but her.
Luisa.
Yeah, her. She's like the perfect image for me. It's like not super muscular, but also very tall and not overly feminine.
Okay. Let's see. What are your thoughts on the importance of inclusion and diversity in the workplace?
It is extremely important because if not, work can actually be hindered. Like workplace progress can be hindered. The workplace can be scarier. The workplace can be more dangerous because not everyone is accepting who all of their coworkers are. And sometimes it's even the boss. Like some coworkers would be like, oh, this person's not who we agree with. We're not going to follow their orders. And then workplace morale, workplace progress, workplace like generally gets worse and worse. I should know this because I used to work for Amazon and FedEx. It was a nightmare. Because I can tell you right now, Amazon says that they accept trans people. It doesn't come across that way. Not in the warehouse anyway. Not where I worked.
Ooh.
Especially with FedEx, because I actually had my first ever encounter with a sexist, like feminist, like a bad feminist, like someone who's like extremely hateful towards men and only cares about women. And even if you're trans women, she still classifies you as a man.
So,
Granted, yeah, turf basically. Thankfully, I didn't come out. I came out, I think, once to a fellow trans person. They were trans non-binary male. So that was nice to at least have someone there. But the turf was literally like just across my area. So I was like, I just don't feel comfortable, even if I have someone next to me who's like along with me for the ride. I just don't feel comfortable. So after a month, I put in my 2 weeks and just left. I just left. All not because of the turf, but because just generally FedEx. Just, no.
Yeah. Okay. I completely understand that.
Yeah.
How do you stay positive in the face of adversity?
All I think of is like, there's so many worse things out there. I just compare it to like the worst case scenario, or like places that aren't as lucky as we are, or people that aren't as lucky as we are that are in the same area. That like, I just compare it to that, and then I compare it to like average people. Like, would they be able to do it? And if they can't, then I know I am extremely lucky. But if a normal person, like any other person, could do it, then it's fine. It's just not the absolute worst case scenario kind of thing.
Yeah. What is your proudest moment as a trans person?
My proudest moment, I think, would be, I guess, like, figuring out, like, this would be extremely early on, but like figuring out, because I took a year to like find myself. I took a year-long journey to like figure out who I really am in my senior year of high school. Let me tell you, that was not easy, because I was in a relationship that I really enjoyed. I was also like in a state of like, I was nearly failing. Thankfully, I was able to bounce back from that, but I nearly failed. I learned lots of things. One, that I hate Spanish, not the language, but the learning process. I hate learning Spanish. I learned a lot about like what I genuinely despise about like school systems, how the world works, like all that stuff. That doesn't make me a pessimist. I don't bank on that. I don't just focus my entire thought process on that. I'm still like an optimistic pessimist. I look for the good in things. And for me, that was just looking inside me, figuring out, okay, why am I feeling this way? Why do I feel like something's not right? And then like over that year-long period, I had a couple dreams where I was actually a female. Like for some reason, it would always be like a witch gave me a potion, forced me to drink it, and it was a gender change potion. I don't know why it was always a witch, but it was a witch.
The witch took your gender and switched
Exactly. And like one dream, there was a couple dreams where it was like very hazy, and all I could see was like a silhouette of like a tall female with like, for some reason, like a briefcase and like a suit. I hate wearing suits, but all I could think of is like, that's all I can see in like every like future memory that I can think of. Like, okay, what would this lead me down? And I always see that same woman. So I was like, is there something that connects it? And that's when it took a year. That's when I took a year off. That's when I took a year to figure out who I was. I think my proudest moment was just solidifying that this, like all of this correlates into one thing. Because not only did I have the witch dreams, but also I had a dream where I was a lifeguard, and again, I had my gender swapped, and then I was on like a very quick journey to like go back to like not quite completely feminine, but like, you know, like smaller chest, because I had like a D cup, I think, in that dream, and I was like, I don't want it to be that big. I want it to like go down. And then eventually, right when it finally, right when it was all working out in the dream, I woke up and I actually like legitimately cried when I looked, and I didn't have any of that. I was still the same me. I legitimately cried for like 10 minutes. I was so devastated. And I tried going back to that dream, but I've never been able to. But I think that, like the clicking of like, okay, something's wrong, and like the year-long process, and like when it finally hit me that, oh, I'm a girl, I'm stuck like this. And then I did my research. I did that all on my own, and I basically had no outside help. And after like another 6 months, I think, after that year-long process, I told my parents, I was like, hey, I asked them like, what's your opinion on like trans people? And they were completely open to it. And then I pointed out like, I'm thinking that I'm probably trans. And they said like, they did mention that they were going to take a little bit to think about it, but it didn't mean that they were not going to love me any different. They kind of rubbed me the wrong way, but I trusted them because they've never really been that bad.
Yeah.
But I think after a couple days, they came up to me and said, hey, we support you for who you are. We will keep loving you for who you really are. Doesn't matter what you are. And it just lifted a huge weight off my shoulders. I was so happy. And immediately my mom was like, "Hey, you want to go like clothes shopping sometime, or like get your nails done, or like do all these girly things?" And my eyes lit up. I was so happy.
What does pride mean to you?
Pride to me means a time in the year where everyone can be who they are, even if it's for a month, just who they are, and no one can really tell them otherwise. I know some people still can, some people still believe that, but it's that time of the year where no matter who you are, no matter what you identify as, no matter if you're like male, female, non-binary, agender, cisgender, like anything, you can be accepted for who you are. You can be treated equal, even if it's for a month, even if it's for a day. It's better than not having it.
In what ways do you feel that the LGBTQ community has made progress?
Definitely our president right now. He's in full support. He's in full support. Like this will loop back eventually, but he's in full support of the LGBTQ community, and he has pointed out. I think yesterday or the day, but probably a couple days ago, he mentioned that he's going to crack down and completely eliminate all anti-LGBTQ bills, or he's going to at least attempt to.
That's
and
really good.
He wanted to do that at the very start of his presidency, but COVID that kind of took a front seat.
Well, he did do a little.
Yeah, he tried doing stuff, and at least he did a little bit. But now he's actually able to crack down and properly deal with it.
How does it feel to be a part of the LGBT community?
It's very welcoming, it's very warming. It's just, it's so nice. So nice having like a massive group of people just to talk to, and like having subreddits dedicated to it. It's just so welcoming, so cozy, so warm. Just,
How do you plan on celebrating Pride this year?
But usually what I do is I kind of subtly do it, because I would openly do it, but introvert and also scared of the outside. But I usually do it online. I'll usually just and I would probably do it all year long, but during Pride is when I'm like, okay, I can go all out with this. So I usually have a trans background, like what's behind me in my VTuber model. I usually have those. I usually have all of the stuff around me is pink and white and blue, mostly pink. Let's be honest, mostly pink. But I try and make it pink, white, and blue. I have 2 blahas, so I always just every time a blaha is brought up, I just buy another one, because there's an IKEA literally right next to my work. So I just run down there, pick up another one, and then add it to collection. But I think what the main thing I do is just support all I can, support in any way that I can, whether that be vocal or helping people out who are trying to figure out who they are. They might be in the trans community, they might be in the LGBTQ community. Just helping them out in any way is just
Yeah. And if you could do anything you wanted for Pride without, with how the outside is, what would you do?
I would probably band a group of people together and just create a booth, or a couple booths all around the US. Even if it's just one booth in a couple cities, just enough so that people would know. Make booths that have in very densely populated areas like New York, California, Florida, the big cities where a lot of people are going to be moving around. Set up booths where it's If you're curious about LGBT or you don't quite understand it or you're thinking about it, just take like a couple flyers, maybe take a photo, stuff like that. Or like take a photo of the booth and send it to like Twitter or anything like that. Like do that kind of thing. Just spread the word of it.
Mm. My first question is, what is your name? What do you do? That.
Yeah, so my name is Hebby or Snake. Either works. I'm 18 years old and I am a non-binary lesbian, and that really confuses people a lot. And I'm also a voice actor, artist, and writer.
Explain the, I guess, concept of a non-binary lesbian.
So a non-binary person is a person that doesn't believe that they fit in the category of either gender of female or male, so they tend to be neither. And then a lesbian is a woman that is attracted to other women. Technically, my term would be trixic because that means a non-binary person that mostly likes women and feminine people. So it's a gray area, honestly. When it comes to lesbians and sexuality, I tend to identify the sex as opposed to the gender identity, but I know people do the opposite, so.
How would you describe yourself in one sentence?
I am a mess of creativity and anxiety.
I feel that.
Yeah.
How do you cope with being misgendered?
It happens a lot. Typically, I don't take it personally. A lot of people don't do it to be spiteful. They can just do it because it's a bit hard to understand the concept of they, them pronouns, which is what I use. And so my parents typically call me she, her, and my friends call me she, her, but they're not doing it to be spiteful. When it's to be spiteful, I tend to get a little bit more upset, but even then I try to just ignore them.
Okay. I do the same thing.
Yeah.
Let's see. How does your identity affect how you work with people?
Well, it depends on the people you work with. When I typically work with people, they are very respectful of pronouns for me. So if you find someone that's disrespectful, then that can be a little harder and you can be a little bit more offended, and it might affect your workflow and how you handle things, because, you never know what people are like thinking. But I would say as a whole, the only thing that can get in the way of my gender identity being non-binary is that people are just going to misgender you a bit. And it's not necessarily spiteful, as I've said, but it's just more out of confusion.
Okay. What has been the best and worst reaction you've gotten from someone about your identity?
The best and worst. I would say I've definitely been asked a couple times what I mean by that, why I can't just be one thing, or why I can't just be my sex, the one I was born with. Best reaction was probably just someone who I told, and they immediately started calling me they, them pronouns, and was excited, got me a pin that said they, them that I could put on my apron while I worked at Starbucks. So that would probably be the best reaction. As for lesbian, my brother went and bought me some Pride shoes, like limited edition Pride Month Converse. So I would say he's definitely the best reaction.
How does it feel to be non-binary?
Honestly, it fits me. One thing that I always had trouble with was my identity. I didn't like she, her pronouns, so I tried, transgender, like FTM, female to male. But that didn't feel right either because the he, him pronouns didn't exactly work. And then I found out what non-binary was, and I was like, oh my god, that's perfect. That is me. I'm not either. I don't identify as a woman or a man. Even now, when people call me a woman, I'm like, oh, no, 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 stop that. Or if I think someone called me sir once, that was a fun day. I had short hair, and I had like a big hoodie, so you couldn't see really anything. So
Yeah.
it just felt right. It feels right. I feel confident in myself.
That's really good.
Mm-hmm.
How does it feel to be a part of the LGBT community?
I love it. It's a beautiful community that, I mean, sometimes there are some people that can spoil it, but I feel like that applies to everything. But as a whole, it's just a loving community of fun people that just want to do their thing, have their life, and love the people that they love and be the people who they want to be.
What is your opinion on Pride Month?
I love Pride Month. I think that it's a very important month where we need to remember all the people that may not be totally accepted. I think that there's this crazy idea that Pride Month is too extravagant, but in my opinion, I think it's very, very needed, and it's got its purpose to recognize everyone who is a little different and might be criticized because they're different. I think people want to assume that homophobia is less apparent, and yes, it is from, the 1950s, but
Yeah.
it's still there, and we need to always fight for our rights.
In what ways do you feel that the LGBT community has made progress in recent years?
I think that we are more widely accepted. There's just those people and the Supreme Court, but
Yeah.
there's just these people sometimes, and we can always be very proud of ourselves for always standing up, no matter what. Whether our rights are being threatened or if it's just so that we know we appreciate who we are and we're not ashamed and we let everybody know. There are times when I'm just very proud of the people that help others, like the Trevor Project that just helps, I believe it's homeless LGBTQ plus youth.
Yeah.
We still have a lot of work to do as a society to help everybody, but I think we're getting there slowly. And then, of course, yay for legalizing of gay marriage.
Yes.
Yes.
How do you plan on celebrating Pride Month this year?
Rainbow everything. Rainbow shirt, rainbow shoes, rainbow pants, rainbow hat. I love rainbows. I have my flag, my lesbian flag, always with me. And I need a non-binary flag. But I also have earrings that are like the pride flag colors, or my pride flag colors. So there's my non-binary earrings and my lesbian earrings, and I love wearing those, and they're shaped like snakes, which if you couldn't guess already, I love snakes. So that's perfect, and I'm very just excited to, maybe I'll go to a pride parade. I've never been to one. So.
Ooh, what do you think a pride parade would be like? I mean,
I
I've
just-
never been to one.
I just imagine it's probably a bunch of people wearing really cool rainbow outfits, getting food, eating drinks, drinking,
Yeah.
and just having a blast. There's these cool floats that are probably just people in screaming and being loud and happy and all that stuff. I think it would be really cool. I've just never been to one.
When it comes to children, because this is a big thing that we're talking about, do you think that children should be, brung to pride parades and celebrate Pride?
Oh, absolutely. I think there's nothing wrong with your children being exposed to LGBTQ plus youth because I'd rather them be comfortable in themselves than be afraid when they realize something is up. And I'm going to say this right now, bringing children to pride parades doesn't make them gay. It makes them realize who they truly are and that it is okay to be themselves.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
That's all the questions I have.
Yeah, cool.
Is there anything else you'd like to say?
I'd just like to say that the LGBTQ plus community may seem a little bit out there sometimes, and that is kind of our whole thing. But we are very wonderful people who just want to make sure everybody is equal and loved in the same way as everybody else. So don't be afraid of us. I swear we're good people. We can be a little obnoxious sometimes, but hey, I feel like that applies to everybody. So always love yourself, never be ashamed of who you are, and always love others.
Well, thank you for letting me interview.
Thank you for interviewing me. I love this.